Can you tell us more about how common and respected the vaginal steam was and is in the culture of Latin America? And like you were already saying, most women know about it and they do use it for their health. Are they aware of all the benefits, or this is the one treatment working for all the issues in this area?
Yeah, it is basically. You could say it's a panacea for the reproductive organs, and we're finding that now in the 21st century, younger women are starting to again agree that's old-fashioned. We don't do that anymore. Then, unless they have a problem that medical profession is not able to take care of. And then they say, oh, I remember my granny said we should do a vaginal steam. Then they often come to see me to get the information or to do the vaginal steam, and they find that it helps a great deal. But as I said, it is common knowledge. Yet amongst the young people, under 30, they are losing the confidence in that because of the inroads of modern medicine and their process of discreditation of everything that isn't in their realm. So young people tend to listen more than we, I guess. I don't exactly know why, but yeah, we find that younger people need more convincing.
Which cures and improvements have you witnessed yourself?
All right, number one, and primarily, is dysmenorrhea. Painful menstrual cycles. And the primary sign is dark blood at the beginning of a cycle, dark blood at the end of a cycle, or a feeling that your uterus is about to fall out when you're just before your menstruation begins. So then we see that after the vaginal steam, those indurated fluids pass. And therefore, after we lift and strengthen the uterus with the abdominal therapy, they go hand in hand for us. Yeah, menstrual cycles, number one. Number two is often a fertility challenge. We never use the word in my profession, infertility, because it just smacks of something that is very negative and very final. It's a fertility challenge. And we find that sometimes, again, as I said, the vaginal steam is one of our complementary therapies that we use within these abdominal techniques. So we find that if the wall, as I said previously, is indurated inside the uterus, there is not a sufficient soft, juicy membrane for that to attach. And then if the problem is in the fallopian tube, sometimes women have adhesions, scar tissue on the fallopian tube. Sometimes the uterus is swollen and inflamed from incompletely flushed lymphatic fluids. And therefore, that little tiny needle width of opening between the uterus and the fallopian tube could actually be closed because of the inflammation and the swelling. That opening is only the width of a needle. So how much swelling do you need to close it? So the vaginal steam then helps all of that excess lymphatic and venous drainage to move out of the pelvic. And then, of course, the massage also is important to get the lymph moving. So dysmenorrhea, fertility challenge, and then, of course, the misplaced uterus. And for premenstrual syndrome, we find it very helpful. And even for postmenopausal women or women who are perimenopausal, it's very important because as you end your menstrual cycles, you want to make sure your uterus is cleaned out. And we find that women who have stopped bleeding and are now officially menopausal, if they do the vaginal steam 3 months after they've had that full year, they will still pass some fluid. And the fluid is, just as we said, rather dark, rather brown, and rather thick. So that, do we want to leave that on the uterine membrane for the rest of your life? That could lead to some very serious problems within the uterine membrane. So we find that women, even 2 years after menopause, are still passing some of these indurated tissue from the uterus. So it's all very important. Mm-hmm.
And if somebody's healthy, would you recommend to do a Yoni Steam?
Absolutely, absolutely. Why wait till you get sick? Yes.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If we're a healthy person, I would recommend maybe 3 times a year.
Okay.
And 3 times a year, with once in the week before menstruation. If a woman is trying to get pregnant, we like to do it before ovulation. Then we find that women who are going for IVF, the gynecologists tell us that after a vaginal steam on the day of transfer, the cervix and the vagina are moist and soft and much easier to access and easier to open to insert the tool that they use for the implantation. So we also recommend it on the day of transfer. And we find that there is much better success. Women who have insufficient cervical fluid find that it really increases after a vaginal steam, because within the vagina, sometimes the crypts that create that fluid are often clogged, and they're clogged with lymph. So it's, it's connecting the dots, right? You have to look at the nervous system, you have to look at the lymphatic system, look at the arterial, the venous, and the chi, the energy of the body. And, that's why our training takes a few years to really deeply understand what traditional healers practice who never went to school. But for us to understand it, it took me 25 years of scientific research on the anatomy and the physiology to understand this, because my teachers could never explain this at all. It works. Why do you need to know more? It works. That's enough information.
Yeah.
If I ask my teacher, the midwife, why do you do a vaginal steam? Because it helps her. Why does it help her? Because it's good for her. Why is it good for her? Because it helps her. So,
in the loop, yeah. Actually,
yes.
Vaginal steam when a woman has, what is the abbreviation? IUD? UID?
Well, there's a controversy there. Some of my practitioners who are nurse practitioners, they believe that it is not contraindicated. I believe that it is. If you have an IUD, the purpose of the vaginal steam is a uterine lavage, meaning to wash, to cleanse. But you have an object in there that is meant to be seated and is meant to prevent implantation. So personally, I think it is contraindicated, but I do know that there are other opinions.
Okay. Yeah, that is a good point, because I had this request and I wasn't sure. I felt it's not ideal to have it, and could even move the IUD, and that wouldn't be.
It could lodge somewhere. I just don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I hear you.
And of course, they have heavy periods with the IUD. Because homeostasis is trying to dislodge this foreign object. So they almost always have heavy periods, and the vaginal steam increases that. It's that what looks like another type of a symptom, but it's just that cleaning itself out. But it's going to be more violent if the body is aware that there is a foreign object in the uterus.
It wants to flush it out, no? Yeah.
Exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. What would you say it's a difference or advantage doing it with the healer versus at home?
I think the first time is absolutely necessary that you do it with a practitioner, so that, number one, you don't burn yourself, you don't scald your labia with too much heat, that you are properly covered, and that when you get up, your back is covered so that you don't get a wind invasion on your sacrum. It's just that the technique has to be learned. After the technique is learned and well set into the mind, the person can do them at home, yes, but not the first time.
Mm-hmm. And how many times would you average treat a woman who comes with issues to you, like in combination with the abdominal massage? Would you do it just one time?
It's usually, in general, it's 3 cycles. And that would be perhaps six treatments. And within there, 3 cycles, there would be 3 vaginal steams. There might be 6, depending on the severity and the length of the signs and symptoms. We might recommend twice a week vaginal steam. We might recommend once a week before menstruation, and then 2 abdominal therapy treatments during the 30-day cycle. So it usually takes 3 cycles. Sometimes we have a woman with a fertility challenge who just needed to get her uterus lifted up and get all that excess lymph fluid out, get it, and then she's pregnant within 1 cycle. That happens a lot. I just talked to a woman last week who had had 3 miscarriages and had difficulty getting pregnant again. I sent her to a practitioner in the United States, and the practitioner, I always instruct them to try to get the woman to wait for 3 months so that we have an opportunity to really clean the uterus, get it back into good position, improve the blood supply, the venous drainage, the lymphatic drainage, and get better nerve supply into the whole pelvis. And so she agreed, yes, I'd love to wait 3 months. Well, she went to a party, had a little bit too much to drink with her husband, and they got pregnant before her next menstrual cycle. So in cases like that, we are sure that the problem was uterine malposition, because when it gets lifted, right, then all homeostasis takes over. The body is self-healing, self-regenerating, and so if we as practitioners remove the obstacles to nature's natural healing ability, we must remove obstacles and you leave the rest to the body wisdom, and that's what happens.
Oh, it's so beautiful to hear. That's great.
Thank you.
I haven't heard you talking about hormones. I mean, the plants I'm using, it's mainly local plants here from Europe, especially Germany. If I'm able, I go out and collect them myself. And some of them have different hormonal aspects. So what is your take on that?
Well, my, I'm in the jungle, okay, and I had Rainforest Remedies herbal company where we made herbal concentrate drops for about 22 years. I recently sold the company to a lovely lady from Germany, Eva Sankfelder. She's in Belize, and now she manages and owns the company. So our plants go into a formula called Female Tonic. And if there is any plant of those 6 that are in there that I could put a finger on and say this is a hormonal precursor, right? They could only be precursors. I don't believe that there is any estriol or estradiol, except maybe in basil. So these are precursors, and the one we use is the Mexican wild yam, which was the plant that gave us the birth control pill. So from that Mexican wild yam, they discovered steroidal compounds that could lead them to human hormones. So they were able to manufacture estrogen and progesterone from the Mexican wild yam. So that is in our formula, along with 5 other plants. So those are the ones we use, and I have been in Central America for almost 50 years. I am no longer familiar enough with the European or North American herbs to speak wisely.
I hear you. So
But I know that the chase tree, that's very valuable. Many people use that.
So for your steaming, you're using your 6 herbs, nothing else.
No. Those 6 herbs are in a liquid formula that you take by drops. It's a tincture. That's by drops. That's what we give to women who have a lot of symptoms, a lot of signs, where they just have had painful periods for years, where they just a lot of symptoms, right? We like to give our female tonic to take by mouth, and the vaginal steam to do before menstruation, and get the practitioner to massage the pelvis and the upper abdomen, because the key is the blood supply to the uterus comes from just under the rib cage. So if there's tension in there and the blood supply is not moving properly, then we really can't work against that. The abdominal massage is the primary treatment. The vaginal steam is really secondary. The massage is primary, because we cannot even get the results that we hope for with the Yoni steaming if we don't have good blood supply going down to the uterus, which is its very life force. And as we all know now, sometimes the chi is disturbed as well. As you mentioned, there's a lot of coldness in the pelvic organs. So we have a complement. We use the abdominal massage, the Yoni steam. We use castor oil packs. We use a female tonic, and we also, will sometimes have to do some emotional counseling. We find that women who have had emotional traumas around their sexual organs are often holding a great deal of emotional, spiritual tension in the tissues. And we do our best to help women to release that without being psychoanalysts. We don't psychoanalyze. But when you massage a person's pelvis, those issues just come out. So as you see, it's not just the Yoni steam. It's not just the abdominal therapy. It's a complement of alternative therapies that we use in our practice for women and men.
Yeah. So there was one point you were talking about the herbs for the steam, but I didn't hear, is this the same like in the tonic, or do you use different?
No.
Different.
They're different. As I said, we like to use aromatic herbs, not essential oils, right?
Yeah.
Plants that contain essential oils. Here in Central America, oregano is a favorite. Rosemary, marigolds. Lots of people love marigolds because of their essential oils. So those often they are culinary herbs. Thyme, oregano, sage, rosemary, marigold, those would be our primary. And we have some wild plants that one's called womb bush. It's obvious what that is for, but it's not a plant that you would know or whose name you would recognize. So because I live in a different part of the world, we have also in Central America very specific plants that are not universally known or even known outside of this region for Yoni steams.
Wonderful. That was such a uplifting and inspiring conversation. Thank you so much.